Hey everybody, what's up? It's Josh here of the ShowMeFootball.com podcast. And before we get into the podcast, I just wanted to thank Urinating Tree for coming on to the podcast today. And we want you to go check out his channel, Urinating Tree on YouTube. Makes really good sports content. But without further ado, let's get right into it.
Kingdom. Start drinking it, folks.
What is up, folks? We've made it to the big time. You've probably heard of this guy, whether it be Sports Balls, Haters Guide 2, or my personal favorite, Days of Our Steelers. We are here with my favorite YouTuber and a big personal inspiration to me, Urinating Tree.
What's up, boys? How you doing?
All right. So, we're just gonna talk some football. You know, we usually stick to Chiefs or Mizzou stuff, but today we're just going to talk some football in general. I feel like a good jumping off point is tonight we have the battle for the lead of the NFC East between the New York Football Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles. What do you guys think is going to happen in this absolute shit show?
I would say the Giants win by shit show, and they pretend they can win the NFC East. That's my prediction. Like, the NFC East in general is just a massive tank brigade. Like, there is no other way to describe it. Every team in that division is absolute shit for one reason or another. And the fact that one team is able to not only get a playoff game, but a home playoff game is insulting.
It's just hilarious that the last place team, you can still make an argument for them having a legitimate shot to win first place this far into the season.
Yep. The Washington football team ends up going to the Super Bowl, right? Is this how this goes?
I called that before the year. I mean, it could still happen, but before the season, when the football team selected Chase Young, I'm like, oh shit, this team could be the next Niners. I didn't think they would be as good as the Niners, but I felt like they could turn around because I believe in Riverboat Ron. That was before all the shit with Snyder and the name change happened, and everything has just gone wrong for the football team.
Mm-hmm.
Another question we had is, well, today we see Yannick Ngakoue gets sent to the Jacksonville Jaguars to join that Ravens pass rush. Yeah, the Ravens pass rush. So what are your thoughts on that move?
That's a big move for Baltimore, and it blew up in Minnesota's face because they thought they were going to be a lot better than they were. But in the hindsight of things, they traded what could be a high second-round pick for a late third. That's pretty much the swap.
Yeah. Well, and this relates kind of back to the Kansas City Chiefs team that we cover. But so one of the big criticisms of the Ravens was they can't really hit home with their pass rush unless they're blitzing. But they blitzed a ton against the Chiefs, which resulted in a softer coverage from them. So the Chiefs just tore them up in the intermediate field all night. And so now with the addition of Ngakoue, you also have Calais Campbell and Matthew Judon. So the hope is for them that they can rush forward and just drop a bunch of guys back into coverage.
Mm-hmm.
I think Matthew Judon's gone after this season. I feel like because I saw it earlier this morning, it was Ngakoue, Judon, and a couple other key defensive pieces who are scheduled to be free agents after this year. And I've seen a lot of Ravens fans complain about Matthew Judon to the level that we complain about Frank Clark, which kind of surprises me. But the more I think about it, it makes sense. How often do you see Matthew Judon highlights?
Judon has issues in pass coverage. I think that's the main thing they're complaining about.
Yeah, they say that Ravens fans love to talk shit. I'm sure you know that.
Yeah.
But after we beat them, everything that we heard was just, Well, if we had a legit pass rusher, then we would have blown you guys out. When in reality, it seemed like Calais Campbell was in Patrick's face all game because Austin Ryder can't block a kid on Twitter.
Yeah, the Ravens, like, they love to brag about their team and how they're loaded from top to bottom, and then as soon as they lose, they got every excuse in the book.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and Dez. Dez is back, boys.
Yep, Dez is on the practice squad.
Probably not for very long, but
Hey, I mean, he's back. I mean, he tore his Achilles like when he was practicing with the Saints, didn't it? Or was it something?
one play.
One practice.
It was the last play of the practice.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was the first.
It was the first practice.
It was first practice.
Yeah. Last play of first practice, which, think what you want about Dez, but it's just good to see him back. We'll see how it goes. I don't know if he'll end up actually getting any playing time, but good for him.
If he's willing to take a practice squad contract, I don't know why Veach didn't make a call because, you constantly see Dez Bryant on Twitter sucking off the Chiefs. You know he wants to be a Chief, and then we have Garrick Dieter on the practice squad. Like, there's no way I would ever want Dez Bryant on the active roster. It's just a really big risk at this point. But if you replace Garrick Dieter with Dez Bryant on the practice squad and Dez just happens to look really good, why not give Mahomes yet another weapon?
Exactly. But kind of moving on, Tree, a question for you. So one of the most popular series on your channel is the Legacy of Failure. A lot of people love that one, and one that Chiefs fans are familiar with that watch you is the Andy Reid Legacy of Failure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So would you want to elaborate about how that is kind of how that's aged a little bit and what your opinions of Andy Reid are now?
So, Reid's won a Super Bowl, so that's pretty much over at this point. The problem with Andy Reid in the beginning was he was unable to adjust to, defensive schemes. That was why he kept failing a lot. Plus, I mean, a lot of people say Donovan McNabb, he had some bad teams in Philly, he got a bad shake. But remember, back in the early 2000s, Philly fans wanted Reid's head on a platter. They celebrated him being fired. And then the Chiefs had a long history of just futility, but then he gets another legit quarterback in Pat Mahomes, and he can just roll on offense. He's able to adjust on defense. He finally got rid of Sutton, which I think was the biggest change, and then needed change. Because you get a guy like Spagnuolo who can, develop schemes, is a proven commodity. He helped that 2007 Giants team end the perfect season for the Patriots. So
I think one of the big reasons they got him, and sorry to cut you off, but I think one of the big reasons they got him was because he was kind of a proven Brady stopper.
That too.
But yeah, definitely. And also another thing is, another question I have for you stemming from that is, do you feel like that Andy Reid finally getting over that hump is more of Andy Reid actually going away from what was killing him in the past, or do you think it was more so a just absolutely generational quarterback kind of overcame those deficiencies from Reid?
I'd honestly say it's a little of both, to be completely honest with you. So,
yeah,
it's a combination. I don't think it's one or the other, per se.
I think another interesting topic about that Super Bowl win is who was on the other sideline. He was facing another notorious choker, so one of them had to eventually shed that choking label.
Yeah, one of them had to be vindicated, and then Shanahan learned nothing from 28-3, and that's why you get the situation you're in now.
Yeah, you saw a lot of, I don't know, but I felt like you saw a lot from both Super Bowl 50 and Super Bowl 51 with Mahomes jumping on the fumble and then Kyle Shanahan blowing another lead and, trying to force the pass game even when the Chiefs had really no answers for Deebo and they had a really bad run defense until they needed to stop the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like one of the, like you were saying earlier with Bob Sutton being fired, that is 100% why we won the Super Bowl. Because at least from a Chiefs fan perspective, I might be kind of biased in saying this due to my nostalgia. Because, I'm 17. I grew up really getting into football with that Alex Smith led 2013 through 2016 team
Mhm.
with Alex, Tamba, Justin Houston, Derek Johnson, Eric Berry, Jeremy Macklin, all those guys. Those were my boys. And it kind of hurt to see us win the Super Bowl as soon as the guys I grew up with left. But hey, fuck it. A Super Bowl is a Super Bowl. But with Spags bringing in his new set of guys, I'd almost say that Bob Sutton's set of guys were better players. Like, I'd take Justin Houston over Frank Clark, and I'd take a healthy Eric Berry over Tyrann Mathieu, even though Tyrann's great. Spags just knew how to call a defense, and Bob Sutton obviously could not. He had the problem that a lot of defensive coordinators have with Brady, and they just keep calling the same thing over and over, and then when Brady picks it apart, they wonder why they're losing.
The problem is you can't go zone D on Brady because he'll pick that apart. He'll just dink and dunk and do the short passes all day long because he can expose the soft underbelly of the zone. He's honed it to a point where it's just like, okay, what's my first read? All right, slaying up the middle with Gronk or maybe Josh Gordon. Let's just say somebody like that. That's all he does. Julian Edelman, slants. It's slant city. That's all it is.
And another interesting thing is someone you're familiar with, Steven Nelson, the cornerback for the Steelers. Yeah, he was with us, and he played in that Sutton scheme. And it was so evident once Bob Sutton was fired that these guys were really excited. And if you haven't noticed, Steven Nelson is kind of vocal on Twitter, going at Chiefs fans all the time. He was just so happy to leave. And I think a lot of that had to do with Bob Sutton. And a lot of Chiefs fans love to criticize Steven Nelson, saying he's a trash corner. I thought the dude was pretty solid.
Not a trash corner. He is probably one of the most underrated corners in Pittsburgh. And you know why I notice this is because you do not notice him when he is on the field, which is a great thing for a cornerback. He is shut down. And I think the change of scheme really helped him on that matter.
And we never gave him a chance, which is why I hate to see Chiefs fans just kind of hate on Steven Nelson so much, because I thought the dude was really solid. Just when Bob Sutton is your defensive coordinator, you stand no chance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing with that, Josh, is, Tree, I'm sure Pittsburgh fans are probably similar, if not worse. Chiefs fans have kind of like this blind faith in the team, and if you're on this team, we're 100% behind you, but if you're not this team, you are the reincarnation of Satan. Fuck
Pretty
you.
much.
I'm glad you're gone.
Yep, that's a Steelers team, all right.
Yeah, so I feel like even if, they would have the same reaction if Patrick Mahomes left. They just hate anyone that leaves. So I feel like that's part of it.
I mean, it's a business. There's not much you can do about that if they leave for a better contract or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect transition, actually, because as everyone knows now, the Chiefs picked up former Steelers running back Le'Veon Bell. Of course, he was with the Jets in between that. But, Tree, what are kind of your feelings towards Le'Veon Bell at this point, and what do you think he brings to the Chiefs, just having watched him for such a long time?
Thing with Le'Veon Bell is, I mean, I'm still kind of bitter about how he, did that stunt with the franchise tag. But I knew he wasn't going to succeed with the Jets because his strength is in a great offensive line and, letting them create the holes that he can emerge out of. The Jets just completely misused him. His strength is have a great offensive line, let him build those holes due to his fantastic vision, and as a safety valve in the passing game. They did none of that. And you're wondering why, there was huge things coming out like, oh, Adam Gase didn't even want Le'Veon Bell at that price tag. And so you're sitting there like, okay, you only have 4 touchdowns, no 100-yard games. He is underwhelmed, but I think that's more of the course around him and the shit show that's the Jets. I don't think that's Le'Veon Bell.
Well, if you look at what players like Kenyon Drake have done as soon as they get out from under Adam Gase.
Yes, sir.
But I'm really optimistic with Le'Veon, but what you brought up with Le'Veon having to have a good offensive line to succeed, and he obviously had that in Pittsburgh, but I'm really concerned if Kansas City will be able to replicate that, because you saw it against Buffalo. Daniel Kilgore stepped in for Austin Ryder and just took Ed Oliver out of the game. Daniel Kilgore looked great. Nick Algoretti looked really good, but the Chiefs don't have a great offensive line. Eric Fisher, I hate Eric Fisher, but I guess he's solid.
Apparently a lot of people hate Eric Fisher in Kansas City. I remember after that Steeler game, it's like, God, this guy fucking sucks.
I was
he
at
lost
that
that
game,
game.
and I wanted to murder him. I've still not forgotten him for that bullshit holding call.
Yeah,
but,
that's what everyone hates him for.
Yeah,
not only that, but I feel it was one of those years where I was like, okay, if we get past the Steelers, I really feel like we have a true chance to beat the Patriots this year because, Patriots usually came out on top, but there were a few times that Andy Reid had Belichick's number in a couple games over the years.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of nervous if Le'Veon will be able to run as well behind the Chiefs' offensive line as he did for Pittsburgh. But I honestly think his best asset is in the pass catching game.
Yeah, I think that's why they brought him in. Safety valve for the passing game gives them another deep option for that offense. And I think that's what you need to look forward to in Kansas City. Not his running game. You have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's going to be maybe like a stopgap in certain situations, but where he's going to come in is in shotgun formation, maybe pistol formation, spreading out as a wide receiver, or as a safety valve for Patrick Mahomes. That's where Le'Veon Bell's going to come in for you.
One of the problems I've had with Clyde Edwards-Helaire is he does not punch it in on the goal line. It's weird to say that I've been disappointed with a running back that's has the second most rushing yards in the NFL. But honestly, I have been, given the fact that we took a running back in the first round. I'm of the belief that unless his name is Derrick Henry, you don't invest a lot in the running back position just because they're so easy to get now. And so I feel like Le'Veon is probably not going to get a lot of yards, but he's probably going to get some touchdowns because he has the vision to see the holes and get in the end zone, and that's something that Clyde just hasn't been able to do.
Mm-hmm. I think too, like Le'Veon's not going to be like a goal line guy.
Yeah, not only that, but
it's not his.
Chiefs have two running backs. Yeah, and the Chiefs have two running backs on the roster that are like 5'9", below 220 pounds. Le'Veon Bell is right in that 6'1", 225-pound range that you need him for those third down pass protection plays. Clyde is not a good pass protector right now. And could that change? Maybe. But just because he's on the smaller side, he's just naturally not pass blocking is not his strength.
I think when we drafted Clyde, because, I was shocked when it happened because Clyde, to me, was the fourth running back on the board behind Taylor, Dobbins, and Swift. And just the fact that we would reach for the fourth running back on the board was so bizarre. But I think what they were trying to do is kind of get their own Le'Veon, because that's the biggest praise I have for Clyde is he's very slippery. That's the best way I can describe his running style. Week 1 against Houston, you saw a lot of people try to arm tackle him, and he just went right past that. And that's kind of what Le'Veon is too. He's very elusive and hard to get your hand on. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of Chiefs fans started complaining when we signed Le'Veon because they believe so much in Clyde. But we were supposed to have Damian and Clyde in the backfield, and Clyde is supposed to be our Le'Veon. So why wouldn't you just want to sign Le'Veon so you have two Le'Veons?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And it's just a good depth signing. And a lot of fans, I think they mistook his holdout with Pittsburgh as being a locker room cancer. I don't know if you see that a lot, but we see that a lot among Chiefs fans, calling Le'Veon a locker room cancer. And he just doesn't really give off that vibe to me. I think the dude just wanted his money. Good for him. He got it, but now he's moved on. And that was just really confusing to me. I think he will step in here and he will do really good. And the thing is if he doesn't, well, worst case scenario, he doesn't work out and you cut him loose. I mean, there's really no risk involved.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with Le'Veon, he's doing this so he can kind of ring chase because he's already paid a $2.5 million signing bonus by the Jets. He's getting $6 million guaranteed from them still. So he can get league minimum from the Chiefs, maybe rebound his stock, and then get another contract in the next offseason. Like, he won't get $15 million, but he can get maybe a decent short-term deal if he plays his cards right.
let's transition into the other former Days of Our Steelers star that's in the news right now,
Oh god.
Antonio Brown. Where do we think he's going? The actual locker room cancer. Who's going to take a shot on him, and how well is it going to work out? Tree, we'll start with you.
Honestly, dude, somebody's going to look at the talent and see that they could hopefully control him. Like, I don't know if you're going to be able to. Sorry, you're not. But that's what they're going to hope for. They're going to think, okay, maybe we can do something with this guy. Maybe he won't suck for us, but you got to be careful with him, man. Like,
what do you think, Josh?
I'd say Seahawks.
Yeah, no, that would probably be my. No, you're good. That would probably be my pick too. The Seahawks as a landing spot because Russell Wilson has really advocated for him. But the thing with Antonio Brown, I feel like he's just so in over his head at this point. He just doesn't get it, man. I don't. And a lot of people have been like, "Oh, Antonio Brown has CTE probably," and I feel like that's kind of been a joke. But honestly, the dude might actually have it from that Vontaze Burfict hit because I don't know how you
could. A lot more than that. If it's CTE, it's going to be minor. Apparently, he had a lot of other issues before this. So
yeah, and he's just a character for sure.
Mm-hmm. The first time I ever remember hearing about really Antonio Brown issues was after that Chiefs Steelers game we were talking earlier when he did the Facebook Live in the locker room. That was kind of the start of all of this.
Like apparently meant not like Ryan Clark, like when he was like a younger player, like he'd be this massive diva. So like I could see it happening beforehand, but could have taken a while. Maybe, but we'll see.
For sure.
You know,
and, real quick, I think you really have to give credit to Mike Tomlin because as far as I know, I think a lot of Steelers fans were kind of wanting him to get out of Pittsburgh, but I thought he really did a good job and was good at letting go of players when he had to. What would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, the thing with my issue with Tomlin at the time was that he would just like give them carte blanche. Like he wouldn't really, discipline.
Right. That's a concern we have with Andy. Not that the players have trouble, but just discipline in general when it comes to the team performing. Just he doesn't really. There's no repercussions for turning the ball over or things like that.
Except for Shady McCoy, they benched him.
Yeah.
Well, Shady McCoy, he's in his twilight, so.
Yeah. Which is a shame, but oh well.
The team that I would love to see Antonio Brown go to is, all signs are pointing towards the Seahawks, but to me, that's not really a fun signing. They already have a good receiver core, especially if the NFL reinstates Josh Gordon. But I would like to either see him go back to the Patriots because, his tenure there ended really quickly, but I don't know how realistic that is. But the team I'd like to see him go to the most is send him to the Packers and give Aaron Rodgers probably his most talented weapon ever.
Antonio Brown, maybe, but once again, I don't know if they want to deal with his bullshit there.
Yeah, that'd be
the Patriots said, "Oh, we can control him." No, you couldn't.
Yeah, and if Belichick and that whole Patriot way brainwash thing doesn't work, well, then I mean, where is it going to work? But I think I might be wrong on this, but I think Antonio Brown actually has a grievance case with New England right now, which would essentially negate him from signing there.
Oh, the thing with New England, too, is that they had rape allegations, man. Of course they were going to cut you for that. You're dealing with suspension.
Yeah, definitely. It was just crazy. But
speaking of
Connor, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to transition into talking about what's going on in New England right now. And because, a lot of people are hitting the panic button. They're 2-3. Everyone's saying, Belichick isn't anything without Brady. But I definitely have a lot of thoughts on what's going on in New England right now. And I just want to hear what you guys think, too.
I think with New England, they weren't able to practice. That was the problem with them, at least. So I mean, it's going to take time for them to really, get everything onto it. So,
yeah. Well, and they had like a dozen opt-outs too, which doesn't help.
I still think New England wins the division.
I say Buffalo.
Really?
Buffalo's going to win the division, dude.
Yeah.
Belichick's black magic is going to bail him out, I feel.
I think it'll be close. I think it'll be close, especially with Buffalo losing the last 2 games in a row. But ultimately, I think Buffalo is just that much more talented than New England at this moment.
Yeah, but when New England looks good, they're good, Kansas City dominated Buffalo. Buffalo looked really weak, and even a Brian Hoyer-led Patriots team still kept it semi-close with the Chiefs. Obviously those games had closer scores than they felt, but I feel like the weakened Patriots looked similar to the full-strength Bills against Kansas City, with the exception of Matt Milano being out.
Mm-hmm.
But again, Bills fans, I guess I underestimated how valuable Matt Milano was to the Bills, because on Twitter I had Bills fans telling me, yeah, you guys are going to win really easily. Matt Milano's out. Kelsey's going to be wide open all game. And so I don't know how important Matt Milano is to that Bills defense, or I don't even know how long he's going to be out.
Well, yeah, and Connor, if you didn't mind, I was actually going to transition a little bit to XFL, because a lot of people who listen to us are really into that. And Tree, you actually made a couple of videos kind of talking about the XFL. So we've gotten the news that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Redbird Capital have bought the league. They want to return in 2022. Tree, I just want to get your thoughts. What do you make of the XFL? Do you think it can come back? Do you think it was killed because of unforeseen circumstances? Just what are your thoughts on the XFL?
I personally believe it was unforeseen circumstances that took out the XFL. Like, they were doing all right. I think they would have lasted for at least a couple years if it weren't for the pandemic. Like, my goal for them at the beginning of this past year was, if they can fill those MLS stadiums, they can sell them out on a consistent basis, they'll be okay. Because there's a demand for a spring football league. I don't know if it's going to be a huge demand, but I think it could at least be something.
Yeah, Connor and I, our biggest criticism of the XFL is that we feel that they didn't choose a lot of the right cities to put a team, because Syracuse
they went for media visibility.
Yeah, that's what we said. Like the New York and the LAs, we think they did that for the TV deals and that sort of thing. But you hear cities like Syracuse, Oklahoma City really wanting the team. Birmingham was, they were a decent team in the AAF, got a little bit of attention. We thought that would be a good city, but
Birmingham really couldn't sell out stadiums, though. That's the only thing.
Yeah, which that's the whole thing with St. Louis. They loved the XFL here. They loved it. They were like the best-selling team in all of the XFL.
St. Louis,
yeah, and our listeners, we have a lot of listeners that are Battlehawks fans, love the St. Louis team. And if you didn't remember, so the Edward Jones Dome, where the St. Louis Rams used to play, that's where the Battlehawks were playing, and their ticket sales were so good that they were going to open up the upper deck, and they were projected to sell out the entire Edward Jones Dome for an XFL game. But of course, coronavirus hit, and we never got to see that. But
Seattle was doing well too. So I don't know how much that was flash in the pan, but they were doing well as well.
Yeah, and I think that shows that the XFL, there's a pathway to them surviving if they play their cards right. And that's why I think maybe next time around they should maybe consider, and we'll get in more into this as we start talking more about it, but that's why I feel like they should put teams in maybe Oakland or San Diego that recently lost a team, and have owners that they want to piss off by kind of showing up.
San Diego had a little bit of a boost with the AAF. They should put a team in San Antonio. Look at how they supported the Commanders in the AAF. So that would be a move I would make. I would move the team from LA, because you're never going to get like that sort of traction, even though everyone likes it because, it's the big team. People like it, But here's the problem. They're never going to support a team that doesn't win or isn't super important. Yeah. So I don't care about media visibility. You go where there's going to be passion and intensity. And where that is, San Antonio, St. Louis, Seattle. Those are your 3 big markets right now.
You can probably add Oakland to the list because of the passionate Raiders fans. And I know you talked about it in your Marty Schottenheimer Legacy of Failure video. You mentioned the UFL briefly, but I'm not sure how much knowledge you have on the teams there. But I remember hearing that the Omaha Nighthawks had great attendance. So if there's a stadium in Omaha that you can put a football team in, it would do great because you see how much they love Huskers football in Nebraska. It's literally the only thing in Nebraska outside of corn. So put a team in Omaha and you should be pretty good.
Omaha would be an interesting target as well. If you have the right stadium, of course.
Yeah, I think they had like an old baseball stadium or minor league baseball stadium, and the only thing that stopped it from getting destroyed was the UFL. So they were really excited that they weren't going to lose their stadium, but of course, everyone had to sue to get their money, so they couldn't keep the stadium.
Yeah, and I'm really hopeful for the XFL because we've seen a lot of spring football leagues fail, but like I think the XFL had a great mix because they had the football product, they had the marketing, they had a solid fan base. Like the AAF, I had no idea the AAF was a thing before it just popped up on my TV one day. But the XFL, like I knew it was coming, I was excited for it, and the turnout was pretty good, so I'm really hopeful for it. And I think I don't really think there's anyone better at bringing entertainment and football together than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. We were talking about it in our last podcast, but Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is one of those guys that kind of was a player that the XFL would look for back when they were looking for players. The Rock was someone who played football and kind of fell through the cracks and, never really got a chance. And I think that's what the XFL is for, is these players that don't really get a chance. I mean, you saw we have Jordan Ta'amu in Kansas City now, who was the Battlehawks quarterback, and PJ Walker in Carolina. It's stuff like that makes me think we should have a spring football league.
I agree. Young Wei Koo got another chance in the AAF. Like he was nothing, and now he's the starting kicker for Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we need a spring football league. The one argument against it that I've heard that is pretty good is sometimes people just get football fatigue.
That was the big challenge I feel like they're going to have.
Yeah,
I feel like
when you had when you have a full NFL season and college for the people who are college fans as well, and the XFL comes on, they're just like, eh.
Yeah. Like, you can have too much football and be like, have that situation. So that's a legitimate concern.
One of the problems I feel like they're going to run into, because, we already talked about how the cities are stupid, but I feel like this sounds kind of stupid saying it, but I feel like they might prioritize potential over marketability, which
that's why they moved to LA. They're worried about the potential.
Yeah, like I feel like they need to go after players more so like Johnny Football, Tim Tebow, and Colin Kaepernick rather than Kellen Mond, Kelly Bryant, these college guys who could develop into something. I feel like they might need to have these retreads who failed in the NFL but are still polarizing figures, because everyone knows who Tim Tebow and Colin Kaepernick are, right? So if you put that, whether you love Tebow and Kaepernick or hate Tebow and Kaepernick, you're going to watch them either to cheer them on or hope they fail. And it doesn't really matter what they do as long as you get eyes on the league for at least the first season.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like their biggest, or the XFL's biggest name was Aaron Murray. And that was just a mistake. And the AAF...
Well, the XFL also had Cardale Jones, which was a big guy at Ohio.
Well, that's another thing is that Cardale Jones, I remember reading that more people from the state of Ohio tuned into that game than in D.C. because Cardale Jones went to Ohio State.
Yep. Like the AAF had Trent Richardson. Like that was like the big guy. And all he was good for was 2-yard rushes and goal line stands.
They got Johnny Football.
Yep. Johnny Football for a hot minute. Christian Hackenberg, and he sucked. It's like, oh yeah, now that's why you never threw a pass in the NFL.
Did you hear he's trying to be a pitcher now?
Who, Christian Hackenberg? No.
Yeah.
No, I did not.
A lot of walks.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So, and then this is kind of the last question I had for you, Tree, but another one of your popular series on your channel is the Lil Cows. And so I always grew up a Kansas City Chiefs fan, but I'm based in St. Louis. So whenever the Rams did good, I would follow them. I low key cheered them on. I was a low key fan, but they were not my favorite team. But the thing with St. Louis is one of the reasons they love the XFL is because they wanted to piss off Stan Kroenke because they wanted to prove that they're a football town, which I think they are. But you made a lolcow video, and you really went in depth on Stan Kroenke and kind of the things he did to St. Louis, and I was really happy that you did that video because I feel like not enough people know the kind of guy Kroenke is. Like, you hear people complain about Dan Schneider, a horrible owner, or you hear about all these horrible owners, and yeah, they're horrible owners, but you really never hear about people, or you never really hear people talk about Stan Kroenke, and I feel like that's kind of tragic because he's kind of one of the shittiest human beings out there. Would you like to elaborate? Well, and the other thing, one more thing to add to that is in your video talking about Stan Kroenke, I feel like when you were researching the topic, you kind of actually felt for the city of St. Louis and their fans. Did you want to elaborate on kind of what your thoughts were making that video and just what you know about Stan Kroenke and that sort of thing?
The only thing I'll give him credit for is the fact that he built the stadium in Los Angeles without using much in terms of taxpayer money. That's the only thing I'll give him credit for. Otherwise, he raw dog St. Louis. Like, he threw them under the bus. Like, you look at the stuff, it's like, no, they didn't show up because they're not dispassionate. They didn't show up because your team sucked for 15 years. I know everyone's going to say, oh, look about Georgia Frontier. Like, she moved them out of LA. It's because she lived in St. Louis, and they had a deal, and two wrongs don't make a right.
And that's one of the more just strange parts of it is I'm sure you remember, but Kroenke, he is a St. Louis native. He was named after a couple St. Louis Cardinals players. He went to the University of Missouri, and I just find it so weird that he would just kind of do his own hometown dirty like that. Because he's a greedy
ass for the money, man. He married into the Walton family. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you mentioned how he promised to privately finance his new stadium in LA, which, if you're going to do that, it was impossible for the NFL to say no to that. But my issue with it is he promised to privately finance it. But when he got there, they ended up being a couple $2 billion over budget, and he ended up asking the NFL for an additional $500 million in loans to help finish the stadium. And I thought that was kind of screwy because the city of St. Louis actually had a really nice stadium proposal to try to keep the Rams, and the NFL completely ignored it.
Last moment,
yeah, and they just left us anyways, only to break their own relocation rules.
Mm-hmm.
And you also covered it in your video as well, and I'm really glad you did because a lot of people.
I think St. Louis put up a lawsuit against the NFL, right? I don't know.
Yeah, and I was going to mention that. Yeah, no. So Kroenke's actually in some deep crap, and they were right now. I think they are at the stage where they're deciding if they want to take I think it was $200 million from Kroenke, or go for broke. They can go for more, and they want to go for broke. But essentially, Kroenke and the NFL they're in this deep court shit with St. Louis, and one of the big things is that I guess there was some text messages basically celebrating how they fucked over the city of St. Louis, and the court now has possession of those, and about how they broke their own relocation rules and all that stuff. It's crazy because the relocation rules state you can't leave the city simply for financial gain, and that if the city has a plan for you to stay, you have to listen to that first. Well, they completely ignored the city and moved anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But as I was saying,
that's what they did it for.
Yeah, the money for sure. And as I was saying before we went off on a different tangent, one thing you covered in the video that I was really glad you did, because a lot of people don't know, right after he moved Rams to St. Louis, he bought this ranch as kind of like a trophy.
Yep.
And the person who sold the ranch was like, "Oh, just promise to keep people on it. You know, they're nice people. They've leased land on property.
They've leased the land for a long time. Forced them out."
Yeah. And the thing is Kroenke could have went out on this ranch and never seen these people, and like they wouldn't have been a bother. And I'm sure this dude hasn't even set foot on the ranch, anyways.
He probably has, but like it's too like big for him, probably.
Yeah, like he doesn't actually care, I don't think. But you know, he evicted the residents without notice, resulting in one committing suicide.
Yep. Hey, blame Stan Kroenke for it.
Yeah. So, and I think he's one of the worst owners in sports. And to add on to that, I mean, he also owns the Colorado Avalanche and the Denver Nuggets.
Arsenal, too. They fucking hate Stan Kroenke. And I hate him.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because I don't know a ton about soccer, but one of the things I do know is that the teams perform directly based on how much money the owners are putting into the team when it comes to buying players and that sort of thing. And what I hear from Arsenal fans is that Kroenke doesn't put any money into the team at all.
No, not at all.
He openly said that his purchase of the stake in Arsenal was not to win trophies. He admitted that, and he does not care. The one thing I will say, though, with the Nuggets and the Avalanche, so I'm aware that the NFL has some sort of owner rules to where he can't own all three of those. So they're technically still in his name, but his son runs the teams. And I will give credit to his son, as much as I hate the Kroenke family. His son has actually done a really nice job with the Avalanche and Nuggets since taking over.
Yeah, I'll give him that. But I mean, Stan does not give a fuck about anything besides Monet.
Tree, because Josh doesn't like Stan Kroenke.
I don't blame him.
Yeah. And no one in St. Louis here does. And the funny thing is, I watched another video. I forget what YouTuber made this video. I think it was Dom2K, if I'm not mistaken, if you're familiar with him. But he made a video on Carmelo Anthony departing the Nuggets. And apparently Carmelo Anthony and when he was with the Nuggets, invited a bunch of his boys and Stan Kroenke to his wedding. I think he had a wedding or something like that. And Kroenke was there, and Carmelo Anthony was talking with, I think, like Chris Paul and a couple other stars about leaving the Nuggets and teaming up somewhere. And Kroenke was just sitting at this table, hearing this entire conversation go down about his star leaving his team, and he literally did not care. Crazy.
Tree, who would you say is the biggest piece of shit owner in the NFL or just sports in general?
That's a tough question because there are a lot of piece of shit owners right now. I mean, Kroenke's up on that list. Eugene Melnick's up on that list. I would say because most of them are just cheap. That's the problem. Like, they're not like malicious. Like, Dan Snyder is just like a fucking buffoon. Like, fuck that dude. And the problem is all that stuff that happened, I was cynical about it because it's not going to get him to sell. None of it directly connects to him.
Yeah.
At least he cares.
Yeah.
He's
unless you pull like a Donald Sterling, I mean, you're pretty much safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Donald Sterling, but a fucking asshole. He should have been forced to sell long ago for being a massive piece of shit of an owner. That's why he should have.
And people were aware of it, and they never really came forward. But eventually, I think it's like his girlfriend, whatever it was, recorded him.
Yeah,
and that was basically the end of it.
Mm-hmm. She's the truest of the Clippers, man.
Yeah. Connor, any more questions you wanted to ask Tree? I basically finished my little everything I wanted to
really, really off topic there, but I just wanted to circle it back into the team we cover. Tree, who do you think is the biggest threat to the Chiefs and why?
Biggest threat, probably the Ravens.
Really?
I would say that's mostly because I know you dominated the Ravens. I'll give you that. But they still have that defense. They still have Lamar Jackson. If he's on, he's on. And the way I see it, it's still going to be really tough for him to break out like that. At least how I feel. And they still have that defense.
Yeah, so what I've taken from their matchups is the Ravens are a really strong team, but I think the knock on them is that when you get up on them early, they're not really getting from behind because it forces Lamar to throw more. That's not really his strength. You take him out of their running game, it's essentially over. And that's kind of what they did. They had a couple bombs to McCole Hardman and Tyreek Hill, and after that, they just were never really the same. But I mean, it's one game is the thing. I mean, we talked about 2016 Chiefs and Steelers, that game with Eric Fisher and stuff. Earlier in that regular season, the Steelers just absolutely destroyed the Chiefs. Like it was like 45-3 or something crazy like that. Well, they ended up meeting later in the playoffs. It was a 2-point game. So we see how teams can get a lot better or a lot worse by the next time they meet. So I think I would agree with you on that. I'm still a little scared of the Ravens. They're just stacked from top to bottom, especially with the Ngakoue trade. But yeah, I think the key next time is just Mahomes beating the blitz and tearing them apart like that, and just hoping they get up early so they can take the Ravens out of their game. But the Chiefs, there's still questions about their run defense. Their rush defense isn't very good. Granted, I give them credit for what they did against Baltimore in that game, but it definitely could go either way.
I agree.
I'm more scared of the Titans, honestly.
Tennessee looks interesting. I mean, the main thing is, like, they're stronger defensively. They have more of a pass rush than last year.
I think that the only way that the Titans are going to lose is if Derrick Henry just runs out of gas.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, he basically carries that offense, but people don't
Tannehill's
give enough.
still pretty good, though.
Yeah, they don't give enough credit
Right.
to Tannehill either. I really like their just offense as a whole. Taylor Lewan going down for them really sucks, but I mean they still have a pretty solid offensive line. I think Corey Davis, the disappointment, as much of his disappointment as he's been, I still like him. They got AJ Brown. I really, really like Jonnu Smith. I think he's one of the more underrated tight ends in the league. I think they just have a really well-rounded team.
I agree.
Yeah, for sure. Connor, anything else you wanted to add in there, ask?
No, I don't think so. We covered the Chiefs, so that's all we really needed to do.
For sure. So Urinating Tree, thanks for joining us today. We had a lot of fun talking football. And for everyone listening, Urinating Tree on YouTube, go check him out. He has great content. And if you are listening on YouTube, I will link his YouTube in the description so you guys can go listen to him.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, boys.
Yeah, no problem.
Anytime.